Welcome to First Sip Friday. I'm here with John Tungate. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Kevin. Thank you for having me on again.
We like to get together on a Friday and talk about financial topics that have been on our minds, things we've noticed, things that we want to discuss. An idea that I had to talk about with you, because you have just recently left your 20s in the rearview mirror. And I have left my 20s in the rearview mirror, but it's becoming a more faint memory. So I thought I would capture some of your memories of dealing with personal finance in your 20s before it's also a faint memory. And more specifically, I wanted to get into what kind of mistakes do you think people are making in their 20s when it comes to personal finance? What have you observed that people get wrong, and then when they get into their 30s, they have some regrets about how they handled it? And I'll get you started. I'll give you one that I'm really curious about. What do you think about online reputation for future employment purposes? I know a lot of people are just going wild on social media without any restraint whatsoever. Is this just me thinking it's more of a problem than it is, or do you think this is actually catching up to people when they're going to try to expand their careers 5 or 10 years later?
Well, one, thanks for reminding me that I turned 30. I went on a ski trip this past year, and they for the rentals, they put you in a age-based box, and they had the 18 to 29, and unfortunately, I'm now in the 30 to 40-year-old range. So that hit a little hard when I had to check the box for the first time.
Old man's, it's the old man's basketball league. You want to go play baseball? You're going to be in the old man's league now. Welcome to the party.
I don't mind being the young buck in the old pool over here, so I'm okay with it. So let's talk about online reputation and social medias. And folks have a smattering of opinions on this coming out of their 20s. Absolutely anything you say online can wind up on a recruiter's desk, and it could be the reason you don't get a job. It's that simple. I have definitely posted things in my past that I've gone back and cleaned up later, and it's not because I didn't like what I had to say, but some things don't age well. And you need to be careful about your words and how they are perceived. When you say them, when we have a video conference like this, you can go back and watch that later, and there's context. There's some things that folks put out there that are in the public, that are floating around, that are perceived as a detriment to being a new hire to a company. And I'm not saying to censor free speech, and that's a whole different other topic, but being polished, having a good resume, and not having anything when somebody Googles your name that could pop up and put you into the wrong category right off the bat is really important if you're trying to build a future.
The internet does not forget anything. Just ask Jimmy Kimmel. So many celebrities right now they're at risk with their careers for stuff that they did a decade or more ago. So I'm seeing it everywhere. I don't know exactly what employers are doing these days to look people up, but it's got to be happening. Here's another one. I see a lot of young people going for the paycheck right away. So in terms of where to launch a career right out of college, I see a lot of decision making based on what is the highest possible income that I can achieve as soon as possible, as opposed to what can I do in my 20s to develop a stack of talents that by the time I'm in my 30s, I'm going to be in high demand. That is obviously my preference, and something I wish I would have spent even more time on in my 20s, is putting a bunch of talents together so that when you get older, you're in a great place to do really whatever you want. I see a lot of people chasing for that paycheck. What's your take?
Well, it depends on the situation. I have a lot of friends that come out of college with a pretty massive amount of debt, and the paycheck is something that is appetizing. They need to get after it. They need to make money. And so you have a tendency to be narrow-minded and look at, what is the next 6 months? What's the next year? What's the next 2 years? I don't necessarily believe that's a pitfall, because learning while you're on the job is important. I had a little bit of a longer runway. I came out of school and thought I was done with education. And I was pushed by some great mentors to continue my studies, to add letters behind my name, and do those sorts of things that then later on, 5, 6, 8 years down the road, when I would look at a job, it was funny how many different times they had these additional requirements that were above and beyond just having a college resume. And through no fault of my own, just really good mentorship for people pushing me to get these things. It opened a lot of doors for me. And those doors later on were vastly more lucrative than the ones coming straight out of school. So I think it's a balance. Certainly weigh your options if you have a nice paycheck that is potentially on the table, but look at your career path. Look at the people you'll be working with, and whoever the leader is or whoever's hiring you, take a look at what their career progression has been and where they can go. Because if they're sitting in front of you and they aren't where you would want to be 10 years from now, that's a pretty strong sign that you might want to continue furthering your talent stack, if you will, sharpening the tool that you do have and then adding new tools to your toolbox. And certainly you can do that after hours. So if you find yourself working 40-hour work weeks and you have a little bit of time, I know you're tired, life's tough, but if you can do a little bit of extra, a couple nights a week, that's really important and goes a long way later in life.
You make a great point about student loan debt and how that reduces options people have, because sometimes you just got to get that check. You got to pay that loan. That's a great point. But in terms of developing skills, do it in your 20s. Once you have a few kids running around, they're trying to bang in the door right now as we speak. Not harder to work on your game, to work on expanding your skill sets, becoming a better public speaker, becoming a better writer, learning coding, whatever it is. Please do that stuff in your 20s. It just gets harder to add later. Okay, next topic. Hoarders. I see a lot of cash hoarders, which is fine. I'm glad people are saving up cash, but a lot of times there's people who are building up cash aren't investing it. And then the people who are investing, sometimes I see them only using their 401k. So effectively, they end up having no access to money without a penalty. So on one hand, you've got people saving well, but they're just putting it in cash. And on the other hand, you have people who are saving well, but they're putting it all in the 401k, so they couldn't get to the money if they wanted to buy a house or something.
Yeah, so let's talk about cash and saving. First of all, if you're saving, wonderful. Please do that. Save for a rainy day. Understand that if you're not saving 20% of your gross income, you're falling behind for your retirement plans. You're falling behind for getting the home if you're in your 20s. You're falling behind because life is expensive. It's expensive to have a kid. It's expensive to get married. It's expensive to buy that ring, to host the wedding, going on nice vacations. It's all expensive. You should make a goal to take 20% of your gross income and save it. That means 401k. That means your checking and savings account. And then to what you allude, is it appropriate just to save for a decade in cash? And at a minimum, do that. The problem with doing that is every year, as we know, costs go up. Things get more expensive. Education gets more expensive. The cost to drive a car gets more expensive. Your dollar that you had 10 years ago isn't really worth $1 today. I I remember 10 years ago when you could go down and spend $5 and get a Big Mac, large fries, a shake, and a drink at McDonald's. Now that same combo is going to cost you $12. So I think it's important to realize you can't keep cash where it is, because you are basically losing money safely every year to inflation, to the erosion of the purchasing power of that dollar that you spent. So how do we address this? You address this by investing. It can be as simple as buying the S&P 500 and having it sit there and grow. But the idea is you take advantage of compounding interest, which is one of the most powerful things that you have working for you as a young person. To put $1 to work at 20 and then watch it grow and compound over the next 40 years is pretty amazing. And it's shocking when you look at the math to see how it works. If you're not doing that, you should be. And if you haven't done that, you're now in your 30s and you've amassed this huge nest egg that's sitting there, and you kind of feel like, well, I need to do something with this, but I don't really have the education on it. I don't know what to do with it, but I know I should be doing something. Go out and ask for help. Find somebody in your peer group, talk to your parents who have done it, ask them what they're doing, hop online, read some forums, educate yourself, and then go find a professional, if you're uncomfortable with it, that can help you with those decisions. But if you're not doing that, you will fall behind. And to address specifically what you said about, well, I'm doing my 401k, that's enough. The problem with that is there are penalties. It is not liquid dollars. And when there comes along something that you're wanting to purchase, maybe it's a house, we need a down payment for, it's pretty expensive to get access to your 401k. 10% penalty, back taxes. You should be saving more, and you should make it a point to get in the habit of living, quote unquote, within your means. And that starts with, if you make $100,000 gross income, save $20,000 a year. And if you can do that, you're doing the right things.
I think there's nothing more powerful than having options when you're in your 20s. Because when you're 22, you're coming right out of college, you have really no idea what your 30-year-old self wants to be doing. You just can't even imagine. And it might be something totally different from what you're doing at 22. But what I see happen is people they go for that good job, fine. But then 5 years later, they're 27. They've had a little raise. They're making a little bit more money. The career is going well. And big companies do a nice job of making it hard to leave. They have golden handcuffs, all sorts of ways of making you want to stick around because it's painful to leave financially and otherwise. So then people are now 27. They feel they're stuck in a career they don't really like. And if they don't have access to cash to take a risk, they may be stuck indefinitely. And it only gets harder to make that change, the career change. And I don't care if the career change is you quit your good job and you buy a van and you go surfing for 2 or 3 years, or you start some sort of a crypto startup tech company. But the key is, if you don't have cash, you don't have access to cash, you're not going to have that option. You're not going to feel good about it. And you're probably not going to take that chance, which is when you want to do it most in your life. That's probably the most important thing to me of all this stuff. Let me ask you one more. I think, well, I'll just pose it. I think people wait too long to have kids. And the reason they do that is because they want to have the nest set up properly. It's not everybody, but a lot of people think, I need to have my income at a certain level. I need to have a house. I need to have everything arranged before I can bring kids into this world. So this goes a little against the grain of what we typically do as financial advisors, which is prepare everybody for everything. But my understanding is that people have been having kids since there were people, and you can find a way. You'll find a way. You'll make it work. And I think it's unfortunate that people are looking for too much financial security before they decide to go for it.
Well, that is an interesting topic. I do not have kids yet. It is something that I have absolutely been on the other school of thought of. I want to be secure. Um, I want to make sure that I have the nest egg there, that I can provide a home and a good starting plate. That being said, my parents didn't have that. And I feel like I turned out all right. My friends might argue otherwise. But it is important to understand that life moves forward. And if you want to have kids, if that's something that is in your heart and you have the special person you want to start a life with, then don't hesitate because the finances aren't there. Don't let money be the reason that you aren't doing the things in life that you want to do. Yes, if you have kids at an early age and you're not fully financially independent at that point and don't feel as secure as you should be, it might mean things could be difficult, but that's part of our journey here, and that's okay. Things have a tendency to work out as long as you continue to work hard, study as much as you can, surround yourself with excellent people who are doing good things in life. It's okay to do those sorts of things. And many folks have kids without a plan, and they will all say the same thing. It's the greatest thing that's ever happened to them. Not a single person will say it was a mistake having a kid. And I don't think they're lying to you. And that should be an encouraging thought.
John, cheers to the young people.
Cheers. Have a good day, Kevin.
You too.